Well, hello, everybody, or anybody. I don't know if anybody's here. We're all just running a bit late today. So, yeah, last minute things and working on script and, you know, just the usual sort of Wednesday crazy. So, welcome back to another Wine Shark Wednesday with your host, me, the Wine Shark. Today is the 19th of August. Kind of chilling out, hanging out, learning a lot. What's been going on in the week since we chatted last. Still having technical difficulties figuring out how to make my little contest work, make sure everything is by the by. I'm consulting my legal department, and by the legal department, I mean Tuco, my dog, to make sure that we get everything kind of arranged between Facebook and Instagram so that the contest is all done by their rules and whatnot. But other than that, things in the wine world have been good. We've been exploring some new fun wines and getting prepped. We put a poll out, so we've got new content coming up for the fall, which I'm excited about. And I'm looking forward to kind of getting in some, we're going to get some opportunities to do some grapes that a lot of people probably haven't tried before, which I think is pretty awesome. Hello there to Miss Barbara. Good evening to you too. So today we're going to talk about, we're going to do another wine trends episode. We've talked about Merlot, we've talked about Shiraz. Today we're going to talk about Malbec is the new black, because that, if anything, would be classic about this. We've talked about lots of different. We talked about lots of different trends and how they kind of get there. We've had Malbecs on, the show before regarding actual grocery store grabs. And we're going to do another one today, a different one today. We're going to try the Alamos Malbec, one of my easy to find names in the Malbec world, which is kind of cool. And we're going to just talk about why and what this grape and how it got popular and what it's been kind of that's meant, if you will, for the wine world. I think that the trends in wine are something that I think is always very fascinating to me. I like to see that odd combination of the marketing world meets the real world and where those two kind of things cross. And whether it's the dog wagging the tail or the tail wagging the dog. A lot of trends in the spirits and beverage industry are very much tools of marketing, right? They are trying to be the tail wagging the dog, telling you what's cool. And but occasionally things can flip the other way around, that things can come up with their own organic kind of nature. And I like to see the kind of the contrast between the longevity of those two things, and I think the genuine nature of the more grassroots thing is a more positive experience for folks overall, because it doesn't feel like you're being fed a line of bullshit where they're like, this is what you should like next. So anyhow, say the least, this is a perfect example, I think, of what I would call most of my students recognize this as probably the most popular or obvious wine trend that they have had. Oh, so Barbara says she's drinking Infinite Monkey Theorem Tempranillo. Oh, fun. The Infinite Monkey Theorem project, which we did on the Wine and Picnic show, Wine for Picnics show. We had their Viognier, but they're a kind of a combo project between Colorado and Texas, and doing they have the one winery in Austin and one outside of Denver, and they combined. They do kind of funky different grapes, and the name, of course, is the Infinite Monkey Theorem, is the 10,000 monkeys, 10,000 typewriters equals Shakespeare kind of joke. But they put out some fun stuff, some fun juice. We really liked their Viognier, so glad to see you trying their Tempranillo too. I think that is excellent. A lot of the stuff that they're doing out of Texas is coming out of the High Plains area, so around Lubbock and that AVA. So you'll see, I think, some of Texas's more what we're coming into as what I would call our iconic styles. Viognier being one of the white grape that, other than Blanc du Bois, that I think we really kind of are wrapping our heads around, and then Tempranillo being a really example. Hello, Miss David, to Miss David and Miss Mary. Hello from Texas out there to Minnesota. Great to see you guys. So yeah, we are talking about Malbec today. So what is it? We're going to talk about it kind of in its kind of whole form, but not just its popular Argentinian form that we see it now today. So originally, the grape, like many others, was popularized in France, particularly in the Bordeaux region. It was one of the top 5 growing grapes in Bordeaux, and was one of the prime blending grapes that they used on right bank Bordeaux's. Okay, so right bank Bordeaux's are basically they talk about the left side or right side of the Gironde River, being whether you're on a Cabernet base or a Merlot base. But the right bank Bordeaux used the grape there was not called Malbec traditionally. It was called Côte, C-O-T, and actually there's a little it's not an umlaut. I don't know what the particular punctuation mark that it is called, but the O has a hat on it. Let's put it that way. It's pronounced Côte, and it is. Was a very popular grape to blend in up until about the late 1950s. One of the problems that Côte has is that while it is a thick-skinned grape, it is not very temperature tolerant and is not very durable. And so in 1956, there was a really awful freeze in Bordeaux, and it killed off like 75% or something of their stock, and they just decided never to replant that. They didn't want to go through the effort of losing crops at such a broad layer, and so they planted other things instead. So it kind of faded into the background out of its Bordeaux blending nature, but the area around Cahors in the southwest of France continues to grow Malbec to a reasonable degree to this day. However, you don't really see monovarietal Malbecs come to the U.S. very often from France. It was largely unknown for the last 60, 70 years, up until the Argentinians come and kind of bring it out. Now, in Cahors, in the southwest of France, it's also called Arrois or Côte Noir. So not to be confused with the grape that is also known as Arrois Blanc or Pinot Arrois. Because, well, if it's not confusing enough, we have Vitis vinifera, which is the base species of grape. But now we're going to also add in a bunch of nicknames and different names, and ampelographers, the people who basically name which type of breed we're talking about here, is have a field day with this kind of stuff about naming and how they come through. So obviously we have Mark Midland is drinking a Norton Reserve Malbec, so he's like right on point here to be talking about us a little bit later. Excellent. I want to hear a little bit more about that in a minute, Mark, when we get to tasting of our the Alamos. I want to talk a little bit about, or actually just when we get to Argentina here in a minute, I'd love some feedback on that. We've got so French Côte tends to be a little bit different in style as well when it's a monovarietal or a primary blend grape, the lead grape in a wine, from its Argentinian cousin. It tends to be more leathery green and kind of tart or unripe or restrained fruits. Things like unripe plums and blackberries, sometimes a little bit of tobacco leaf kind of thing in there, or can also lean into a peppery, spicy territory as well. It's not necessarily, it's pretty austere from the wine world. It doesn't have it's not really what I would call a for everyone taste. It is a very distinctive style that comes from that wine. And I can kind of imagine why it didn't get popular all on its own. Nobody really went, oh my God, this is the thing that everybody's going to love, especially when it comes to the international stage. It's much more, I think, of what I would call a wine lover's wine from France. And the French have very particular, subsections of their wines where, that's the thing that they're into. So what's Dave and Mary drinking? Have Qui Ciel Bleu d'Aquitaine Sauvignon Blanc. Ooh. Well, all right. Somebody's Aquitaine Blue. I love it. A little Sauv Blanc, something easy for the afternoon. we had a storm blow through here, so it dropped our temperatures finally from the hundreds down into the reasonable digits, and it's actually kind of nice in the shade today. So some cool white wine would not hurt at all. But along comes, after the freeze and the non-replanting of Côte in France, along comes Argentina. Now, this is not a don't cry for me Argentina situation where they came in the 60s and picked up the market. No, they'd been growing. Argentina had been growing Malbec since the 1880s. It was planted there a long time ago, and was developed so they've actually got so several hundred years of winemaking history with this grape. They just hadn't really had an opportunity to put it out on the international stage until the 21st century. So the primary home, as Mark just pointed out, for or may I'm not sure if his Reserva is from, but I'm betting a buck it's from Mendoza. Mendoza is the primary region that grows Malbec within Argentina, and this is a area high up in the country, meaning altitude-wise. It is on the east slopes of the Alps, on the far west side of Argentina, basically on the same latitude lines as most of the famous Chilean growing regions. So on one side of the mountain range, you've got the Pacific Ocean, then leading up to all these Chilean vineyards in this awesome tier system. Then you go over the mountains on the other side and have high altitude, dry conditions, cool air, warm sun, and that's where Mendoza is. And it develops this beautiful, fully ripened, rich, thick-skinned grape that we call Malbec. Now, a lot of the Malbec is not necessarily monovarietal Malbec, though it can happen. They often blend their Malbecs with a grape called Bonarda, which is a regional red grape known as Deuce Noir. I've decided that Deuce Noir is my new private eye nickname, that I'm going to write books as Deuce Noir. Yes, it should be on this episode of Deuce Noir. Deuce is undercover as a wine steward to uncover evil Dr. Seltzer. Yes, and his clawbots. Oh, no. Yeah, I can totally see that. Because, Deuce Noir, or literally second black, I think is a really amusing name, since the running kind of joke that I've used for years of the Malbec is the new black is kind of a fashion joke. If you've ever heard that concept or seen other references to it, like say the book and television series Orange is the New Black. The whole idea of the new black is the fashion trending, and the idea that whatever trend comes out in the fall quickly spreads around and replaces the old trend. It's kind of felt that way for Malbec to me. When Malbec kind of came around about now 10 years ago, a little bit longer maybe, we had there's a lot of hype that went around it. It was very much poised as a kind of counter proposal to Cabernet, Merlot, Zinfandel, and kind of an alternative to those. Merlot had already suffered under the hands of the Pinot Noir trend, and watching Paul Giamatti, say anything but Merlot, so getting that whole crowd out of it. But same thing, Cabernet was still king, riding high on its laurels. Zinfandel was still kind of making an interesting play in that period of time, and so the Shiraz trend had died down because of the Australian import-export, and the crash of their dollar kind of changed things up after the early 2000s. So it gave Malbec an opportunity to come in that same slot into that same price point. Most of the examples in the U.S. That became popular, and the reason it's such a widely known name, is it came in as that grocery to mid-tier market. Right? It came in at the $10 to $25 price point. It was on grocery store shelves very quickly. This wasn't something that was a cult fanatic wine where you had some cool winemaker who made this amazing one wine that then sprouted a bunch of clones, like we talked about for The Criminal, The Fugitive, all the things that imitated the Prisoner wine, which was a Zinfandel-based blend. Instead, this was a little less organic. This was the differences in the economies and the basically the strength of the U.S. dollar compared to the Argentinian one, the way the economies worked, and the fact that you could get really decent quality wine, be able to import it all the way up here and still offer that wine at a really reasonable value. So you were getting these $10, $15 wines that were punching above their weight, and easily challenging wines, I would call it, in the next price class up, where they're challenging those $20, $25 wines. Really kind of cool. Like I said, that's definitely a thing that I think was, I wouldn't call it completely grassroots, because it was very much about opportunity in the marketplace, but the idea that we, the American consumer, are getting a high quality wine at a reasonable price, and we're not suffering from price gouging, is a good thing, right? We've talked a couple times on this show about some of the things we're dealing with right now with tariffs and that kind of stupidity, and just the other weirdities of international markets. And so this opportunity presented itself as a benefit. It was a win-win for everybody, because you got these high quality wines from Argentina that people had, that basically outside the country hadn't really gotten popular yet. Then they release it on the world stage, and now everybody's talking about it. So it's, skip the Merlot, have a Malbec. So Mark says, yes, it's a Mendoza up at 850 to 1,000 meters. Yep, yes, indeed, in 1895. See, so that's, again, lots of old tales there of, you get these very experienced wine families that have been making, multi-generational wines down there, and how weird it is that we didn't really have access to them until this late in the game. That being said, we don't see a lot of what I would call that next price, the next rungs up in the price ladder. We don't see a lot of easily available for $30, $40, $50 Malbecs there. And when I say that, I'm speaking strictly in the mass consumer markets, the things that you're going to see at something like a specific wine store, non-specialty type store. So we're talking about your big box stores, your Specs, your Total Wine, your Siegels, your Goody Goody, that kind of thing. And then, of course, because at the same time, depending on what level of grocery store you're playing at, even your grocery stores weren't stocking $40, $50 wines very often. Now that trend, I think, has changed based on demographics, and at least in our area here in North Texas, since the laws started to change back in the early 2000s, when you had the opening up of a lot of former dry counties, started becoming what we nickname damp, which is basically they can sell beer and wine but not hard alcohol. That was the first premise, and kind of let the door open for those kind of opportunities, because what that meant is that grocery stores could now leverage this highly lucrative, high line, high profit margin option. So they're again, that kind of, by the way, just dovetails into the whole concept of why we have the grocery store grab at all, is because of how dramatic that change was. Like when I grew up in California, and my friends who live out in Oregon and whatnot, the idea of being able to buy wine at the grocery store, buy wine or whatever, or even buy spirits at the grocery store is totally natural. It's because of the laws there. But if you live here in the South and in Texas, you'll have the remnants and the echoes of prohibition, and the way that the blue laws were repealed went from not only a state by state issue to a county by county issue, and so you'd have these oddities like dry counties. You got to say, I don't understand. I mean, I know why at an intellectual level, but still, it offends me. So, anyway, back on to Merlots. One of the things, Malbecs, is getting into the anti-Merlot movement that helped boost it into popularity was really so fascinating to me. Throw on top of that fact that it was specifically going after the fact that Merlot was being overpriced, right? What you had is that trend got so popular, you saw wines of what I would call lesser quality or mediocre quality were getting play and being overpriced at $30 or $40 when they were really only $20 wines in the first place. So anyway, my personal thing on it, like I said, to take the WineShark take on the world, this has been one of those examples of a very positive experience in wine trending. I think that bringing Malbec out of the darkness and into the light of easy access has been great for wine drinkers. It's an excellent alternative in that Cab, Merlot, Zin trinity. When it compares to Cabernet Sauvignon, it's got less tannin, and it's not nearly as big and bold. It's still a bold wine. So when it comes to Cab, Merlot, and Zin, it plays in the same playground. But compared to Merlot, it's got more spice. Compared to Cab, it's got less tannins. Compared to Zin, it's got more austere and darker fruit flavors rather than being very plush fruit flavors. So it has its own kind of unique place. Now, I still, when it comes to trends, the part that always makes me giggle is when people basically throw out the baby with the bathwater, and anything they used to drink is bad, and now only this is good. And so they'll only start drinking Malbecs or only start drinking whatever the new trend happens to be, which I'm pretty sure is just kind of silly. That's not what we should do, right? I mean, add more things to the palate and don't throw the old one out is kind of my own really value thing in there. So look for your Malbec and your Malbec blends. It's actually really excellent when blended with Cabernet Sauvignon, by the by. And you can find a lot of really good examples. Pardon me. A lot of really good examples in the $15 to $20 range that I think you can really explore what's going on. If you want an easy opportunity to try more expensive versions, once we have safe dining in public spaces once again, your churrascarias, your Brazilian and Argentinian barbecue styles are great places to explore those wines, because they'll often have wines that are native to Argentina and they'll have basically better versions of Malbecs, ones that would easily complement the more expensive menus that they've got. So that's an excellent way to sample some of those things if you can't find them at your big box retailer or grocery store. If you have a specialty wine store, chances are you can probably get a hold of some reasonable priced Mendoza Malbec, some upper tier stuff, talking $50 to $100 bottle range, and see where you go from there. So if you really want to splurge it. But one of the things that I always made a kind of comment to me was that when this came on, it didn't have that equivalent thing. So for instance, in the Cabernet world, I can spend anywhere from a $10 Cabernet, a $25 Cabernet, a $100 Cabernet, and know what I'm getting in that range. And they're readily accessible because the grape is so popular. Malbec never really did reach that point where it got that whole range covered and we had easy access. I think that's simply because of the way they were trying to position it and just a simple matter of volume, right? I mean, one of the things that we see in upper tier wines is production numbers matter, how much of the market you can actually reach. So anyway, there's my spiel on that. Everybody's got their glasses there. Donna's got Chateau Saint Michel Riesling. Isn't too bad. Damn, Chateau Saint Michel Riesling is a great choice. Which one of their Rieslings is it, Donna? Is it their dry version, which is their Trocken, or is it is it just their standard label? Because both of them, by the way, I love. They're just that's one of the things where Washington Riesling is definitely something that this WineShark enjoys. So. Yeah, so Mark's saying that Norton's about 12 to 13 at Costco. Yeah, so again, that's one of those kind of winery exclusive things. Is oftentimes what you'll see out of Costco wines, right? It's one of the benefits for being part of their club membership is they'll either have exclusive arrangements or just do big lot purchasing, which is great. Get you inexpensive opportunities there. So. But yeah, so today we'll get to the grocery store grab here in just a minute. But we're going to actually drink some Malbec as an example, because one of the things I realized is it made more sense to keep the grocery store grab related to the topic if I was going to do a wine trending topic. Last time we had a Malbec, we weren't talking about wine trends at all. So that's kind of the thing. But anyway, yeah. So there's that. So. Medium 2018 is the Chateau Saint Michel. Yeah, so that's basically their regular label. So just in time for the grocery store grab. Welcome, Shannon Hops. That's right. Today we are talking Malbec is the new black, and we have just finished our talking all about what the grape does. And we're about to get into the grocery store grab. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the grocery store grab, or for the posterity that you might see this later, well, the premise of the grocery store grab is to work on finding wines at your grocery store when you don't have an opportunity to shop at specialty or big box stores. So if either for convenience or demand, you happen to shop at a grocery store for your wine, that's a very interesting landscape for the wine world because prices tend to be inflated. Grocery store opportunities tend to be less frequent. And so sometimes you're kind of in a wasteland of good wine. And we want to make sure that we get good wines at a good price and not get gouged for them. The focus on this is very much on the label. We approach this in two ways. One, we approach this as a non-expert. So while I am a sommelier, I don't do any prior research on the wines before I do their selection. I choose them off the shelf as if I was a regular consumer. Now, I have seen a lot of wine labels before. Most people have. So today's example, for instance, the Alamos, I have seen for years and have had this wine, in fact, in the past. So it's not a complete unknown to me. However, the goal was to basically in looking at the Malbecs I was looking through, is to reward the ones that are not only in the right price point that you're willing to pay, but have good and thorough label information. So if you were a layman to this and you wanted to use the label as a guide, this is what we are trying to focus on. We want to make sure that they tell us what's in the bottle, what the grapes are. We should be looking for food pairings and flavor words. So all those things combine in to give us a good, awesome kind of concept of what the wine is. So, like I said, as today's awesome thing, the Alamos Malbec, with a nice, pretty picture of the Andes behind it, because regional. Love this. Very simple label. Very, very, very traditional, if you will. By the way, they're very proudly displaying their 91 point score over here on where was that from? This is James Suckling, okay, is their particular rater for this. So his masterclass in wine, I've actually taken that, which is kind of fun. But yeah, 100 years of family winemaking is almost his claim to fame. So very simple. They've got their producer name, they've got the grape, they've got where it's from, Mendoza, Argentina, and the year 2018. Very simple, typical front of the label thing. They're not trying to be flashy or grabby with it. They're basically going, look, we are a solid buy. But here on the back of the label is where, of course, you get where the rubber meets the road. They have the classic 2-paragraph, if you will, format, a marketing kind of blurb, and then they get down to the brass tacks in the last part. So when we talk about, so they're basically going to tell you about where it's from, what it's from. I'm not going to read you guys their marketing text for that purpose. But when it comes to their second part, it's was where I said where we're going to get interesting data. So Alamos Malbec displays hints of dark cherry and blackberry with a long and lingering finish. This balanced and full flavored wine is excellent with grilled meats and vegetables. Ta-da! That one paragraph, that little statement right there, it gives us things that are flavor words. If I didn't know what Malbec was, if you were fresh to wine, you're trying to you've heard all about this thing. What does it taste like? Well, hopefully this wine is going to display hints of dark cherry and blackberry with a long and lingering finish. It's going to do what it says on the label, right? The food pairings there are a little vague. Grilled meats and vegetables is a very broad category, but at least they're giving us some guidance. So I would call this probably a B+, A- when it comes to their labeling. Every piece of information I really kind of want to see is on here, right? We've got where it's from, what's in the bottle, who made it, specific flavor words, and the only thing where they would get dinged is they didn't give us specific pairings. They only kind of gave us general ones. So not bad at all. Alamos at least is doing a pretty good job of saying, all right, judge me by what's in the bottle, and here's what I say that is on this. I'm not going to take a look at that later. I was going to look at the ABV, but we're going to let the wine do the talking for that piece. Shannon says the James Suckling Masterclass is in my queue. Excellent. I think he's an excellent taster. He is a great figure and influencer in the wine world. For the purposes of his masterclass, I would have approached things a little bit different compared to the other masterclasses that I've taken. He gets a little too much. It's almost like he's talking to me, somebody who's already, a wine professional or in the world of wine, as opposed to somebody who wants to learn about wine. For instance, going in episode, I think it's 2, he starts going into vertical wine tasting. I'm like, that's way down the line. Let's not start at the differences, tasting the differences between each year of a specific wine from a specific vineyard. That's not really helpful for somebody in the new to the wine world. It's not that it's not valuable information. It is not that it is. I mean, it's definitely something I would want to see out of a master class. But the order in which they taught the things and how he took the approach to it was not my favorite. So, my firm stance. He's still way more popular than I am. But hey, there's me. So, anyway, let's get to tasting this. Let's talk about what we get here out of our little Malbec. Fun little note. This is one of the things that it's one of the tells for blind tasting for tasting Malbec is its coloration. It has a very dark, inky coloration, oftentimes with a bright magenta or pinkish rim, or a very bright rim. I think you can see that, and I can see that in this particular wine is that it's got a nice kind of garnet colored and brighter than its center by a pretty good degree, which is kind of cool. But good extraction. I mean, this has definitely solid, big, deep, rich, and purple coloration. Right, it's not quite inky dark, but it's also not, clear, easy to see through, clarified, like lighter wine. So it's already speaking to my palate as that. It's got purple colorations when you take and do that swirl. So your brain is already starting to think, okay, darker end of the wine spectrum. On the nose, it's got that blueberry and a little bit of cinnamon kind of oaky thing going on. These wines, generally speaking, aren't overly oaked. They're not oak hammered at all. They usually kind of get in between the 6 to 12 month range, which is on the medium to low side for red wines. So that's good. That's a good thing. I think that's one of the things that actually wanted its popularity is that it didn't have a big oak profile. A lot of folks don't, especially new to wine folks, don't really cotton to oak as a thing, or either it's a love it or hate it thing. That's because so many winemakers use it over much. They use it to hide wine flaws, and that's not a good thing. So this wine, it's just got the littlest hint of it. Back in the back there's a little bit of, I want to say blackberry seeds or blackberry jam. But then also there's an earthy smell, maybe even like an asphalt or a tar almost in the back, almost slightly chemical hot roadbed kind of thing, which interestingly would remind me of the other side of the Andes of Chile. But I might be kind of tripped up by that if I was doing this as a blind. Okay. Big, intense, bold wine, just like we want. I mean, this is definitely the deep end of the pool that we were playing in. We wanted this. We asked for this. So Malbec is not a shy wine, not a subtle wine. It's got big blackberry, and I would call it cooked blueberries, like blueberry pie filling kind of mouth. But the tannins come right along with it. So you're getting this that bit of astringency, which grips the side of your mouth and carries that fruit forward. It lingers on the tip in front of my mouth a little bit, so the tannins kind of linger around and get that little bitter astringency. That might turn some folks off who are not big red wine fans. This is not what I would call a starter wine for those that are new into wine. But again, fruit flavor carries all the way through, and then there's this little hint of Blackstone and that lingering bit of oak that comes through. It's got a middle front of the mouth appeal, and its finish is actually pretty short. I was wondering when they were saying that lingering finish, that's not normally something Malbecs are known for. They don't tend to hang around on your palate. It's one of the things actually that I would consider a feature, not a bug. Malbecs love savory stuff. And umami flavors, right? One of the articles I was reading from Wine Folly, as a matter of fact, we talk about blue cheese is a fantastic thing with it. One of my favorites with it is I love mushrooms with this wine, sauteed mushrooms and garlic on a piece of red meat, whether it's a burger or whether it's a steak. I think it's a fantastic partner with this because that earthy savoriness goes very well and fills in the blanks, and the the way that this fruit comes across isn't coming across as sweetness, it's coming across as fruit flavor. It's like that dried, it's like eating a fruit roll up rather than having a jam, which is tends to what I would picture, in your brain as a little bit on the sweeter end. But because it doesn't linger around the back of your mouth, it doesn't dominate your palate. It goes along with things very well, which can itself be a very food friendly approach to things, which we like. We want when we talk about food friendliness, food appropriateness in the wine world, not only do we want to match weight and we want to match intensity, but we also want to have a level of utility that goes along with it. Another thing that Malbec doesn't bring to the table is acids. This wine doesn't make your mouth want to water. So it isn't necessarily good at cleansing out your palate like some other types might be. This is a little more restrained in that kind of in that mode, and that's actually I guess that's not a good word to use with this because it is so bold. Restrained is not the word I'd use, but maybe it's closed off. It has a definitive space it takes up. Right? It doesn't bring acid to the table. It doesn't bring lingering flavors to the table. But what it does is it says, I am right here in the middle of your palate. Hello, welcome to my fruit friends, and you can call me Blanc Noir. No, not Blanc Noir. You can call me Noir. It's Deuce Noir. It's my new private eye name. Shannon, you missed out on our speech about the other grape that is used often blend with Malbec. That's what it is called Bonarda, and it's a very old grape, like 3,000 some odd years old. But they call it Deuce Noir down in Argentina, and I think that's going to be my new private eye name. So look for a new series coming to you, brought to you by some late night network that's desperate for content. So anyway, the three questions we ask ourselves with the grocery store grab. This, by the way, price point, which we didn't talk about earlier, $13.99. Oh, sorry, $12.99, $13 at list price before the grocery discount, meaning the club discount that you sometimes see at your stores. This one is priced at $10, so only a $3 differential. That's one of the things that I think we've learned in the last 4 months doing this show is that wildly overpriced wines or inflated base prices compared to their actual sales price is them trying to put themselves up a notch, right? And it's a false positive. I think that if the wine is double the price on its list price and you seem to be getting it for half off, chances are that wine was basically only at the base price anyway. Almost, they're not screwing around with that. This is a well-known label. They're doing their business solid. You get what you pay for. There's not a reason much for a big discount. So $10 a bottle, pretty outstanding at that level. So the three questions we ask ourselves about at the end of it is in our tasting notes is it well executed? Is it on style? And is it worth the price tag? Answer to these three questions for me on this one is it well executed? Yes. Wine does not have any flaws. It does not taste like they're cutting corners. They're not trying to cover up flawed fruit. They're not trying to be something they aren't, right? They're making a pretty clean wine here, and they're offering it for a good price, which I think is awesome. Is it on style? 100%. If you were to go and start your world of Malbec and Argentina Malbec, this is literally one of the first ones I'd point you to before pointing you up the ladder to some $20 examples that I think will give you a little bit more complication. They're going to be a little bit more unpacking your picnic basket of fun. Whereas this, it's not monodimensional, but it is a very deliberate thing. It's a Michael Bay action movie. It's not, we're not watching anything more complicated than that. It's not Dr. Zhivago or anything. So that being said, fantastically appropriate at the price point, right? I think that for a $10 wine, you are absolutely getting what you paid for. It is 100% on style, and it's worth the price tag. So I would definitely purchase this again and even recommend it to folks, as I said, who are looking into, hey, I want to try an example. This is a pretty iconic one, I've got to say. So like I said, I kind of knew that going in. This is not necessarily designed to surprise WineShark, right? That's not the goal. I want you guys to be able to recognize labels with a quickness and be able to analyze them when you're under the gun and, well, be able to do that and have that feel empowered by being able to do that on your own. While I am always here to help, sometimes I'm not available. And so you may have to call your WineShark and be like, hey, which Malbec should I buy? I've had that happen, by the way. So there it is. Yeah. So now it is open Q&A time because, well, this isn't just a show about listening to me talking like I'm on the news. It's an interactive show. Well, we only have the ability to chat with you over here. Everybody's got their glasses going here. We've got a pretty interesting little band of flavors going on today. I like it. We've got everything from Tempranillo, Sauvignon Blancs. We've got other Malbecs. Mark's drinking out there. So Mark, actually, if you have the gumption and you're still on, tell us a little bit about your Norton Reserva. Does it have that same blueberry leathery kind of punch? Is its finish longer or shorter? Is it complex or direct? I'd love to hear any analysis that you've got out of that, because it would always help us to double down. If we've got such a good value over there at Costco, I'm sure other people would enjoy it as well. But if you have questions, if you guys have got comments, rash political statements, and other such nonsense that you guys would like to share, now is your opportunity in chat. Do I have a favorite glass or glasses I drink out of when I'm enjoying wine at home? Well, as a matter of fact, I do. The glasses that I'm using here are my house glasses. This is a Zwiegelt is glass crystal. It is a combination titanium lead crystal. It's basically a custom. It's called glass crystal, and it has the two things three things actually that I really want out of a day use everyday wine glass. Right, I tend to use one style of glass for all of my wines unless I am sitting formal. And if I'm sitting a formal table, that's a different story. And I did a show where we talked about glassware. One of the things that you're looking for is the three items that I want to see is I want to see a thin possible glass with durability. So one is thin, two is durable, right? I've got some beautiful Riedel crystal that I use to serve at my formal table, but it's too delicate and for me to be using every day, right? So this is nice and durable glass crystal, has both benefits of glass and of crystal. And then the second thing is that right combination of size. This is an 18.5-ounce glass overall. So when I pour a reasonable portion, you get about yay much wine in an overall wine glass. You basically pour just past the bend. I like this glass a lot, and these glass sizes. I actually have I've posted a link on WineShark. You can actually go through the link there and get and order your own on Amazon. They're I think I got mine on sale for about $60 for 6. I think normally they're about $75. So they're not wildly expensive, but they're not cheap either, right? These are not your $10 a dozen grocery store level glasses. But as I've spoken about in the glass show, when you talk about home and day use, I want you guys to think in two terms as well. I mean, durability, to be honest with you, has to be your first thing. I break these fairly regularly. I lose probably 6 of these a year. Just the way it is, but then again, I obviously put my wine glasses through a lot of use. I'm, using a half a dozen glasses every week, doing different tastings and events and things like that. So that, and I'm also kind of, clumsy sometimes. What I was doing yesterday was something that had to do with making coffee in the morning, and I threw something over my shoulder I threw a towel over the shoulder in the corner that nearly knocked over something that almost knocked over 3 wine glasses, but lucked out. So anyway, Schatzwiesel, that's the brand for the house that if you want. Riedel is my crystal brand, and you can get both of those via wineshark.com. There's a link on there. You guys can follow up. So great question, Miss Shannon. Oh, and check it out. I'm going to show off the Glass Dragons thing again because I can. So one of the gifts that I was given when I was at the Renaissance Fair last year, one of the amazingly talented artists, this is my very cool octopus glass that I was given. And so it has a cool little octopus in the middle that you can basically sink him all the way up so his little tentacle just sticks out from the top like that. It's surgical grade Pyrex, handcrafted, and absolutely delightful. I think this thing is badass. So he's an excellent artist, and I promote his works as often as I can, especially at my shows and at my private tastings. So a lot of fun. So one more question. What is my opinion on stemless glasses? Well, okay, so stemless as well. That's the thing where A wine glass deserves a stem for proper use because it keeps your warm, greasy hands off of the cold, clean wine glass. However, I have several stemless glasses that I use for picnicking purposes. If you are somebody that you wants to use your dishwasher to clean your glassware, stemless glasses are a great option for that. So while they were originally posed as very kind of chic and sleek, I'll be honest with you, you won't see any place that really likes their wine using them, right? They're kind of considered, a just for fun thing. And like I said, from a practical perspective, when you're grabbing the wine by the bowl like this, you got nowhere else to put it. One, you're starting to warm up your wine unnecessarily. We've talked about how temperature is so important to the volatile aromatics and then therefore the flavors of your wine. Number two, you're getting your little fingerprints all over it. Another good piece of wine etiquette: once you choose a place to sip from the glass, you try and continue to sip from that part. At the same time, it keeps your lip marks on one area, especially if you are a lady who wears lipstick. This is nice and discreet, and it means your whole bowl's not all messed up. But putting your greasy fingerprints all over this is not a good way to continue looking at your wine. So in a professional capacity, stemless is a no-go. As a home convenience, fuck it, who cares? I mean, come on, be realistic with yourself. And if you got stemless glasses and they're easy to use and they encourage you to drink more wine, well then, all for it. I'm all down. I will back that up for sure. So, Donna, you say, yeah, isn't that a very cool glass? Like I said, he's pretty awesome there, dude. And got several. So I'll have to show you the decanter a little bit later. His decanter is a true amazing piece of art. The one that he has loaned me for to show to people is this beautiful octopus that basically fills about 500 milliliters. You fill it up with about 2/3 of the way with wine, and you can turn the entire thing upside down, and it aerates the wine as it flows throughout its tentacles, and it's just amazing. Mark says, Betty and my tastes have been destroyed by being chemists. Oh man, that's awful. It has been a short finish and peppery taste. Moderate tannins, just a favorite for many years. Yeah. Then just James Suckling, 92 points. Yeah, this is a 91, is from the same reviewer, which is that's a good consistent point. So yeah. But sure, yeah, but it does still have that short finish and that peppery taste. That peppery taste, by the way, Mark, that's one of the great callback. Is one of the things people like about this as compared to Merlot. When I was comparing it to those three other kind of popular bold reds, Cab, Merlot, and Zin, it's got more yeah than Merlot does, right? Merlot tends to be kind of a smooth criminal, right? It's very chill. It's very it's all smooth pies and cinnamon and baking, and it's low down and smooth. Whereas Malbec's got a little bit more stand up and say a, which I like. So John Kerry, yeah, so John has seen the octopus decanter before. I've demonstrated it in some of my shows several times, but I haven't had that. I said, unfortunately, we will be hopefully back at the Renaissance Festival next year, and we'll get more from the Glass Dragon. His work is truly amazing, and I hope they are doing well out there. So it'd be awesome. So we've been destroyed by being chemists. Man, Mark, I feel for you there. That's one of the things that's just awful in our real world, especially depending on what types of what types of vices one has. For instance, being a coffee drinker, that's one of the things that you can overdo your palate with coffee if you have too much of it. Even though the smell of coffee is often used to cleanse your nasal passages during tastings and such, one of the rumored things of if you drink too much coffee, certainly things like smoking is not a good thing for your sense of smell, of course. But these things that add up to that slow duration. But the other thing is also just practice. In learning that discretion is something that I think just a lot of us have an opportunity for. Not all of us are super tasters, unfortunately, and myself included. I'm not one, but I certainly I say that it just requires more practice. And I mean, practice. I'm not drinking, I'm practicing, or in this case, I'm working. So Anyway, that's our wrap into the world of Malbec. I love that. What else we got? Any other questions? I mean, those great questions from Shannon regarding glassware and uses thereof. Got we talked to you a little bit about what's coming soon. Next Friday. Whoa, easy there, Laszlo. Sorry. Apparently somebody's knocking at the door. So we've got Wine and Cheese Part 3 is coming up and on this Friday, and then we're going light white wines is happening on the Friday afterwards. I just put out the poll for September-October timeframe, and the results are beginning to come in. It looks like we're firming up pretty decently based on everybody's feedback that we're going to be doing Cabernet Franc, Italian classics, Merlot, and offbeat reds will likely be the 4 tasting shows within September. Oh, great. My spotted menace is making Shannon's dogs bark. I love it. We've got a reactionary thing where the internet is knocking my door 70 miles away. So that's weird. But when you talk about wine, when we do wine and cheese this week, that's going to be a lot of fun. If you guys haven't been to the wine and cheese show, it really is the staple basic of wine and food pairing. It's kind of they're really obviously partners in crime, as everybody has can imagine. We talk about cheese and wine almost as a single breath, but we've endeavored in these shows to kind of talk a little bit more about what cheese is, all the wonderful nuances and cool stuff that goes on in the world of cheese, and why and how those things are important to your wine drinking. So you're not only going to learn to love cheese more, but you're going to learn to love cheese and wine at the same time. So this week we're going to work on aging. We're going to talk about aging cheeses and how that kind of works, and where we talk about young, middle, and older cheeses, how cheeses ripen while you own them. In other words, making sure you're eating your cheese in its due time. So we're going to do everything from a fresh goat cheese, a chev, like a little herb chev, to a middle of the road aged Grand Martome, to the kind of firmer, couple-year-old Sartori Bellaventano, which is a Merlot washed rind cheese. And then last but not least, probably one of the most iconic aged cheeses, Parmigiano Reggiano, which can easily get better for 5, 7, 10 years and is an amazing experience if you've ever been to an actual wheel opening for those cheeses, which is just it's a piece of magic all on its own. So David Mary asked about what is offbeat reds. Well, when we talk about offbeat, we're talking about off the beaten path. We're talking about reds that you likely haven't heard or had before. We're going to do some reds from some places you may have never had wine before. For instance, I've got a Hungarian red in my little side pocket that I've been meaning to roll out. So we're probably going to be going to either red varietals you've never heard of and also places you've never tried before when we do offbeat. So we'll do 3 selections of reds. I guarantee you Hungary is going to be one of them because I've got this one I've been wanting to share. And then I'll probably come up with a couple of others. We'll see. So maybe we'll get some Cinso on its own, believe me, it's not like there's a shortage of opportunities for varieties in wine. The key is access, of course. And so we'll find some things that we can get via both Total Wine and wine.com, and we'll go from there. So Shannon says she's going to try and tune into the Wine and Cheese show and see if you enjoy it. Awesome. Without participating since you're working. Well, the good news is you would take all the information from the shows, right? That by tuning in, and Shannon, I appreciate you absolutely for coming in and for the support. That is awesome. Thank you. But I'll tell you this, even if you don't get to enjoy the actual wines along with us, the format it goes something like this. We'll spend about 15 to 20 minutes at the top of the show talking about the main topic, cheese and wine in this case, light whites is the other case, grilled foods, smoked foods, whatever it is. We'll spend about 15 minutes talking about the topic, why it's important, how wine and that interlink. Then we usually do 2 to 3 selections of wine, and with or without food pairing, depending on the show. and we'll go into those specific wines, where they're from, some of the interesting and notable things about the regions, about the specific wines, the winemakers, and we do a deep dive into that wine in particular. We do tasting notes for each and every one of them, so that you'll not only get what the wine tastes like, and you'll also get a pairing menu that kind of goes along with it. My recommendations for proteins, preparations, spices and such that go with it, vegetable options, and cheeses that I recommend for each one of those. And here's the best part. All of those things are, so since we record the Zoom meetings are then posted up and they're available on Patreon. So the entire library of all the classes I've ever done is available via Patreon. And with the Patreon, when I post it to Patreon, I also post the tasting notes. So all the things that you don't just have to watch it. You'll also have basically a written note tagging pad that is a summary of the topic. So it's great for reference later if you want to go back to what was that cheese we had, or what was the wine we had, or when we've got Pinot Grigio, what are WineShark's recommendations for, and then you can go back to that. So one of the things I really hope it adds is that it brings you a value that lingers past just the hour and a half we spend together. I love the show. I love the interactivity. And with each one of those breaks, just like this on chat, except we have live video feed. So I can basically take questions and answer them live and get your immediate feedback. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to spend a Friday afternoon, especially during these tough times where we're all socially distancing, being responsible, and trying to get this bloody disease to go away. So I hope you guys have an opportunity to join us, even if you can't drink with us, etc. If you can't have the opportunity, then I encourage you to check us out on Patreon, because then you can go back and check out all the topics. I mean, we've been doing this every week since mid-May, I want to say. So we've got a pretty good library building up. I'm pretty proud of us, because it isn't just me. It's definitely the group participation, the ability for the contribution of the guests. One of the things that not only what their interpretations about the wine so that they can share what they're experiencing, but also when they don't have the exact same wines that we do, it allows us to expand the tasting even more, because we go beyond the 2 or 3 wines that I'm bringing to the show, and now we're expanding it to 4 or 5, just making it that much better. So it's going to be awesome. But I promise you shall not fail. You shall rise to the occasion. It shall be good. And those darn working conditions, curses. Now, I have thought about that, by the way. We had a show on a Saturday once upon a time because I had a conflict on Friday. Maybe I need to put a poll out there to see whether we need to shift the day and maybe not always do it on Fridays. I am game to do it on a Saturday every now and again if that pleaseth the crowd. I will be where you guys are, you know me. So maybe I'll put that up to the Patreon group and go, hey, maybe you want to once or twice a month we alternate. So we go Friday, Saturday, something like that. So we're flexible. I do what I want. It's kind of cool. All righty. So we talked about what's up and coming. We know that we have what the shows are up there. Once you guys, when the video's done and you guys, when the video posts up, you guys have comments and questions later, or if you're watching this when we're not live, tell us what was your intro or your hot take on Malbec. Are you over it? Are you in it? Are you ride or die for Malbec? Let me know in the comments down below. I got a great wine quote. I was listening to a little Jay McInerney, and he's one of my favorite wine writers. He's one of my favorite American authors and also my favorite wine writer. I was reading. So this is the one I'm reading right now. Bacchus and Me, a Hedonist in the Cellar. This is Adventures in the Wine Cellar. I've got a Hedonist in the Cellar as well. He was summing up some of his old essays that he used to write for Food and Wine magazine. But he gave an excellent quote that I wanted to, that was actually not his, but A.J. Liebling, who was also an American author known for his work on the New Yorker in the 1960s and 70s. So the quote of, "No sane man can afford to dispense with debilitating pleasures. No ascetic can really be sane." That's A.J. Liebling. So if you must restrain yourself, you cannot be sane. It's just not possible. So, and John says, so it depends on time. Well, when once a month on Saturday. So, all right. Well, I like that feedback from John and from Barbara. That is a great start. I mean, all we can do is try. Maybe we'll throw a Saturday out there and see how we do. Of course, I'm always, like I said, trying to be the most convenient for everybody possible. So, I want to say thank you guys once again. Our hour is just about done here, so I'm pretty sure all of you guys have got stuff to do, myself included. I'm going to figure out what that spotted menace. Wait a minute. The spotted menace is now passed out on the bed. I guess his excitement time has passed. So I guess my urgency isn't that urgent anymore. But anyway, if you like what we're doing, like and subscribe to the channel. Share with a wine-loving friend. Please help the channel grow and get more people in here to share our wonderful world of wine with us. I appreciate each and every one of you, your comments, your questions, and your participation. So if you really like what we're doing, like I said, go over and check us out over on Patreon. Until next time, I have been your Wine Shark. Cheers. And scene. Scene? Scene.